Hello and welcome to another Guardians of Wiltshire video. I'm your host Derry. I'm joined by my co-host Luke, and this week
Hey
I'm
guys.
joined by World Champion and Phil Beale. And we're going to be doing another faction overview of Corsairs, the Corsairs of Umbar. So we're going to run through the heroes, the warriors, the army bonus, historical alliances, and then a few sample lists at the end. So we'll dive straight in to the heroes. And we'll dive straight in with Delgamar, Fleet Master of Umbar. So he is a man, Corsair, infantry, and hero keywords. He is a hero of legend. He has a move 6 inches, a 5+ fight value with 3+ shoot, strength 4, defense 4, 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, and 2/2/3 on Might Roll Fate. He has a sword. He's throwing daggers in his smoke bombs. He doesn't have any additional options. But he does have Heroic Strike and Heroic Defense, which are 2 good heroics. His smoke bombs are a throwing weapon with strength of 1, and any model hit but not slain must immediately spend a point of will or be subjected to the effects of Channel Transfix. However, if he rolls a 1 to hit, then his supplies run out and he cannot use them for the rest of the game. He has Bane of Kings, which is rerolling to wound. I've got the yes. And then he also has Stalk Unseen, which is if he's protected by or partially concealed by terrain, he can't be seen at a distance of more than 6 inches. He also has preternatural agility. I can never remember how to say that word. But Delgamar can never be trapped whilst he's still standing. So, gents, opinions. First name on the team sheet?
Always.
Absolutely, yeah. Never sail without him.
Just never sound like it.
Yeah, there's almost no reason not to include him in a Corsairs list.
I was going to say, points-wise, he's a mid-tier hero and a hero of legend, which is massive, especially for your low defense chaps.
Yeah, he's a real sort of glass cannon, Delgamar. The 3 attacks, the fight 5, he's pretty nice, especially with the Bane of Kings. It means that if he wins a fight, he's probably killing. But defense 4, as soon as you lose with him, you are kind of worried. 3 fate, if you roll fate like I do, then fate doesn't always make up for a good defense. But it's just a case of picking your fights with him.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite tricky, isn't it? Because he's kind of the best that the Corsairs have. And if it goes wrong very quickly, doesn't it? And you often can't come back from it if he goes down. It's good that he's got heroic defense, though. It gives him sort of half a chance.
I was going to say, I think that's like second tier of heroics. I think you're looking at your strikes and your march, and then you want your defense really.
The problem is, though, when he's only got 2 might, you're going to be really hesitant to spend that. You know, whether you would rather do a heroic strike or even keep it for winning the fight. You know, to modify your dice. It's a gutsy call to put it on defense. It's very pessimistic.
Not least because he's the only strike in the Corsairs.
Yeah,
list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting. Under the old rules, he only had the 1 might, and 100% of the time I saved that might to keep smoke bombs in the game. You used to be able to might that up to still miss. Never did any heroic actions with Delgamar at all. Once he got 2, I tend to spend both of them on striking now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, like I say, he is the only one with strike, which is kind of crucial in the modern game, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And the smoke bombs are absolutely awesome, but the problem is you need Delgamar to do all of the work in that list. He's kind of the main guy that's going to deal with threats. And if you go in, like, miss with the smoke bomb, and then suddenly you're in a strike off against a really good hero, it's not what you want.
Not ideal, no.
Not ideal at all. No, I think, like I say, he's the first name on the team sheet. He's a mid-tier points level hero and a hero of legend, which is, so getting 18 guys to follow him is really, really handy.
Yeah, I think where he kind of comes into his own is he's like in the old edition where you didn't have to have your general based on tiers, and you could just hide them in the back or whatever. You could have a captain as your general. He can kind of fill that role and just sort of skulk about in the back. But then when you need him to do something in a protected scenario, you can throw him in and he can pretty competently deal with that thing.
Yeah, agreed. I was going to say, you've got lots of other just chat to throw in front of them to whittle down whoever in the first place. And like I say, and then he goes in and does what he does.
And preternatural agility is beautiful when you remember it. So, oh, hang on, he's not trapped. He's fine. Don't worry.
I was going to say, how often does that come up from obviously two guys who have played Corsairs of Umbar?
I don't encounter it that. One of the keys for Corsairs for me is to try and be outnumbering the enemy at sort of all times. So unless you're facing hobbits, you're not so worried about being trapped most of the time.
So very situational.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues that you can fall under, in the way that I've built my Corsair list in the past, is it is as many bodies as you can get. And it's also making sure that you don't get a bit too keen in trying to swarm everyone, that you actually trap yourself. If you've got two spear supports slightly in the wrong place or whatever, it's just like a little extra bit of security, I think.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll move on to the next hero. Luke, if you take this one.
Yes, so one of the newer additions from Gondor was Delgamar. Oh, no, we're not in Delgamar.
No, Knight of Umbar.
Oh, I thought we'd been Delgamar next.
No, I'm going by the list in the book.
That's it. We'll start again.
Start again. So the Knight of Umbar, he is a spirit, a ring wraith, Mordor infantry hero, and he is a hero of Valor. He moves 6. He's fight 5 with a 4+ shoot value, and then he's got a pretty standard wraith profile. So strength 4, defense 8, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 6, 2 might, 12 will, and 2 fate. His war gear, so he has armor of the Sunderland and sword. If I remember correctly, if I go back to his profile, does the armor of Sunderland have a special rule? Yes, so one of the key points for ring races is they lose will if they are in a fight. But this means that if he wins the fight, he doesn't lose that point of will, basically. His heroic actions is heroic channel, and the options you can give him are the armored fell beast, and a horse. Special rules, just covered the armor of the Sunderland there. He also has Harbinger of Evil, Terror, Will of Evil, and Combat Mimicry. So Combat Mimicry, at the start of any fight phase before heroic actions are declared, the Knight of Umbar may spend a will point to activate its ability. He can then elect to use the fight, strength, and or attack values of his opponent instead of his own. He does not need to adopt all of these characteristics. He could, for example, only adopt the fight value. So on the slide, it doesn't have his magical powers, but I'll quickly go through those. He has Drain Courage on a 3+, Transfix on a 4+, Compel, Insteer Fear, and Saport on 5+, and then Black Dart on a 6+. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thoughts, guys?
I think he hit all the branches on the way down of the nerf tree. He would probably be the last wraith that I would put in a team.
Okay.
Alliances aside, I just think he's rubbish now. The armor of the Sunderland is okay, but that assumes that you want to be fighting with him, which I think all of the rules changes make you less likely to do so. Combat Mimicry means that you're never worse off, but when you've only got 1 wound and 2 fate, never being worse off isn't really what you want, is it?
Not necessarily.
No, it's a big risk to take, isn't it?
Also, the fact that he can't strike anymore either.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So he's the worst caster in the Wraith scale. So his spells are less likely to go off. and then he can charge in and not strike above you anyway. Like he's just not there, is he?
No.
He's just not there.
I was just say, I know, Phil, you've got a Night Lumber conversion for your Corsair arm.
Yes. Yeah.
Does he? I was going to say, Phil, if you're going to take him, you're going to take him on a Fell Boost because it increases the chances of him winning the fight and therefore not losing the will. And he also has no way to regain it. But have you used him much in your Corsair list?
Once.
Once.
I took him to Throne of Skulls last year, and actually played with him on the stream. And if you watch that stream back, I completely forgot that he was in the army for about half of the game. I'd tucked him out of Legolas' line of sight and then just wrote him off in my head.
I don't. Like you say, he has been nerfed massively. I used to see him relatively frequently in the old edition. And he's a cool addition to the Corsair list, but like I say, I don't think you'd take him really.
He has a really nice synergy with Sat Will and Daggers, that if you can drain their big hero of their will early on, the smoke bombs going to cause you a lot of trouble for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But again, that Sat Will going off on the 5+ means that
I
tend to donate more will to it than I should and just hope for the best.
Yeah. You're probably checking 3 dice at it, I would have thought, just to confirm. And then it's a tough one.
I think if you forget the fact that he's rubbish and like just pretend that he's good for a little while, he's still a minimum of 120 points, which in a Corsair army, which runs really well when it's sort of spammed, like you could just get more value out of like a Boson or a Captain and some more dudes.
Reavers.
Yeah, exactly. Especially as you said, if you're going to take him realistically, you're going to put him on a Fell Beast to give him half a chance at doing what you want him to do.
Yeah.
I've got 170 points. You can just do so much with that in this faction.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's the pick.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, isn't it? It's worth noting that this model is in metal, and Daggers as well is in metal.
He is sadly one of my favourite of the Ring Wraith model range as well. I love the helmet. It really works for me.
He looks really cool, but yeah, he in this faction he definitely struggles. So we will move on. So now Phil, Delgamar.
So in the Gondor at War supplement, we got a lovely new profile for the Corsairs list, which is Delgamar, the Gatemaster. He is a man, Corsair, Infantry Hero, and he's a Valor. He's got the 6-inch move, Fight 5, 3+ shoot value, Strength 4, Defense 5, 3 attacks, 2 wounds, 4 courage. He's got 3 might, 1 will, and 1 fate. He comes with armor, sword, a whip, and throwing daggers, and you've got no options to change him up there. He comes with heroic strength as his heroic actions, and his special rules are Ruthless Commander. Ruthless Commander means that all friendly Corsair warriors within 3 inches may choose to re-roll a dual dice, but if that re-roll does not win you the fight, they will immediately suffer a Strength 2 hit.
Which is huge.
A very low defense army. It's quite scary.
It's 5s across the board, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's worth noting that this is not a banner. It is a reroll to the jewel, so you can have a banner as well.
And it is also really worth noting that that is everyone in the fight. So you can reroll 1 with a banner, and if you've got 4 other guys in there, you've got 4 other rerolls.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I didn't think of that before, but yeah.
Hugely underrated rule. It also works inversely as well. Like I know it's scary when you think that the army's defense 4, but if you're in a scenario where you want the game to end very quickly, suddenly everybody's getting whipped. It's one of the most efficient ways to kill yourself. That if you stab as well, if you're fighting against elves and things, you're getting 2 chances to kill your own dudes.
Yeah,
which is pretty horrendous, but.
Also, from like a contest of champions view, that strength 2 hit happens immediately, not after strikes are resolved.
Yeah.
Like a stab does. So if you want to deny someone kills, whip them.
Very good point. Yeah.
That's a great show. I think he does well. It would be nice for him to have strike. Like we said, with Delgamar being the only one who has strike, but I think all in all, he's a good. He's a hero of Valor as well for not that many points.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's decent. He's got throwing daggers like everyone else. 3 attacks is a good little buff.
The defense 5 means he's one of the best in the army as well. If you're not taking the wraith there.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's good. Is he kind of second on your team sheet for most of you?
Yeah, I would say so. But a lot of my tactics with Corsairs revolves around throwing weapons. So having 3 might, that's 3 heroic moves that you've got under your belt. He's the only 3 might in the army, so
yeah,
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he's solid.
It's also an absolutely beautiful model from Forge World.
I was going to say he's Forge World resin, and yeah, I painted mine up recently, and it's really really nice to paint. So that was a pretty simple profile, and we'll just move on. So Will, if you want to take the Hashirans.
Yeah, so Hashirans are heroes of Valor. They are Man Haradrim infantry. Fight value 5 with a 3+ shoot value. Strength 4, defense 4, 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, 1 might, 1 will, and 3 fate. They're armed with daggers, throwing daggers, and blowpipes with no extra options. And they've got the heroic strike and defense actions. And special rules, they've got Bane of Kings, which is rerolling all fail to wound, Stalk Unseen, and Preternatural Agility, which are the same as a Delgamar.
So yeah, before we kick this off, this one here was the original OOP. Well, not the original, the out of production model, but was going for a lot. It was originally metal. It is now fine cast, and the alternate pose is the blade up by the head, if I remember correctly, with the hood, and that has always been in metal. So, do you guys use this profile?
Occasionally. I've got 8 Hashirin, I think, painted up. Mostly originally for bulking out an Umbar Harad army, but I've done a couple into my scheme for Umbar. It's another 15 pirates if you're looking for a relatively cheap Valor.
Yeah.
As I said in our sort of hangout and chat, Dewey, I try to get all my armies up to about 2,000 points.
Yeah.
And there's only so many Bosons and Captains that you want to paint for Corsairs to get up that far. So the Hashirin has his place there. Anything below 1,500 points, I'm probably not taking in there.
I think, like I say, he's a solid, but again, like the Knight of Umbar, they lose out to other things in the list that gives them the chance to bulk out forces, and he's kind of acts on his own rather than helping the army. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure when or why the decision was made that the Corsairs were just going to get no might points. Like it just seems to be an epidemic for this army list, and it's not even like they're super awesome in every other way and needed to be brought down to earth. For some reason, it's just an accepted thing that Corsairs don't get might points. And you know, having heroic strike is nice, but with 1 might point, that means you spend it on that strike, and then you just don't roll a 6.
Yeah,
you're screwed, aren't you? And again, you know, they're quite difficult to kill themselves because you can't trap them. They've got 3 fate, but with defense 4 and only 1 might point, like you're not really that bothered about them, are you? You can soon chop them down with troop.
Yeah. I was just say it's worth noting that I know we're going to move on to this profile in a bit, but the Corsair Boson's commanding bellow affects friendly Corsairs, and obviously the Hasharen doesn't have the Corsair keyword.
Same as the special rule for the army as well.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, again, losing out on another aspect that the Corsairs are known for and can do quite well.
It's a nice flavour thing that they've been put in there, so you can have a bit more variety.
Yeah.
But if you think we came from a list that was Harad and Umbar anyway, it's you've not gained anything, you just haven't lost them, I suppose.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the models are nice, but not necessarily something you're going to be putting in your list.
I was absolutely thrilled to get this pose back into the range. I sort of
flirted
with spending
cool.
100 quid on one for a while.
Honestly, I was quite lucky. I managed to pick up a metal one a couple of years ago, along with a Knight of the Panel model for £55 combined. So yeah, I was very, very fortunate that I managed to find that on a trade route. Very, very fortunate. So we'll move on to the Corsair Captain. So he is a non-Corsair infantry hero and a hero of fortitude. He's a standard move 6, like all men. He's fight 5, 4+ shoot, strength 4, defense 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. He comes with sword and thrown daggers, but you have the options to give him a bow, a crossbow, a shield, or a 200 axe. He has heroic march, and he doesn't have any special rules. So these were originally in metal, and they come with an axe and a crossbow, I believe.
Yep.
And then they've, in the re-release, they changed to Finecast, if I'm correct. So, standard captain. Unlike in the fiefdoms list that we covered, that I've covered before with Luke, you're going to be taking these guys.
Yeah. Exactly as Will said, there's 2 might points here. It's a good use. For me, it's always that sort of, they're only a few points more than a bosun. They've got 1 more might point than a bosun, but a bosun counts as a banner. It's always a bit of a toss-up for me whether I take another bosun or a captain.
Yeah, it's good to take a mix of both, I think. The thing that I like about the Corsair Captain is they're one of the better captains in the game. Because you get in fight 5 and you get encourage 4, both of which are super important, especially in an evil army. But then the way that I was playing Corsairs is basically spamming loads of dudes, and obviously everyone's got throw-in daggers, which makes heroic moves even more important than they normally are. And so at that point, you want to be making up for the shortcomings of your big heroes and getting as many might points in as you can. Not to mention the fact that they can have 200 axes and stuff, which is great for murdering things. But for me, that it's one of the better captain profiles in the game, I'd say, especially in access to evil characters.
Yeah, agreed.
Also, your fight 5s put him level with elves, which is always handy, isn't it?
Under the old rules, I always used to take a captain with a crossbow, stick him in a unit of arbalesters before heroic accuracy was made specific. Not least because shooting into combat isn't in the way roll. And then the way things were worded, you could re-roll that into combat to really make sure that you weren't hitting your own guys. Since they've become specific actions, I've swapped to a sword and an optional shield. And he really is there to get those moves off.
I was going to say, is there any particular order you would take the options in?
I would pluck for a shield. I think that defense 5 is nice, but the ability to shield is great when you really don't want to lose someone who's going to be standing fast.
For me, it's crossbows all the way. Spoiler alert for my list later. Crossbows are just really, really good. And And any hero that can shoot with like and have might points to spare on that is awesome. Being able to have a couple of might to guarantee killing a really important hero's horse, or the last wound on a fell beast, or I mean, especially wraiths and stuff in blue on blue, because if you shoot him with a crossbow, all you have to do is hit, and then on a 4+ you're wounding something with your might points, or a 3+ for if you want to get rid of the fell beast, and you just spend the might. It's just another layer of redundancy. If you've got someone's army walking at you and you've got like 20 arbalesters, and then you've got 2 captains with crossbows and might, something important's going to die, or something's gone very wrong.
Yeah, that seems pretty fair.
I reckon you can probably count on the fingers of one hand all of the people who have ever converted a captain with a bow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the bottom of the list. 2-handed axe is fine. I think if I had points spare, I'd probably give a 2-handed axe to a crossbow one, because you don't lose anything.
Yeah, that dual threat, isn't it? So yeah, solid. So move on to the next hero. Luke.
So, Corsair Boson. Keywords: he has man, Corsair, infantry, and hero, and his hero of fortitude. Move 6, fight 4 with a 4+ shoot. Strength 4, defense 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4. 1/1/1 for his might, will, and fate. War gear: he has sword and thrown daggers, but he has the options to have a bow, a crossbow, a shield, a 2-handed axe, or a spear. Heroic actions: he has heroic march, and special rules is commanding bellow. So friendly Corsair models within 3 inches of a bosun count as being in range of a banner. So we briefly touched on that before, but you've got another 3-inch reroll effect there in the army. So yeah, thoughts, guys?
I'd never leave home for that one.
Yeah, it's Peter Jackson. You want to take him, isn't it?
Yeah, they're worth every penny, aren't they? You can lead 12 troops, which is great. They've also got access to a spear, which is pretty handy. Commanding bellow is great. I know it doesn't count as a banner for VPs, but you want to just be stacking these rerolls as much as you can, don't you? And again, he's been hit with the Corsair bat, and he only gets 1 might for some reason, which sucks. but what can you do? He's also got the march as well, which is great.
Yeah.
I think his options give him versatility, and he's a really cheap hero, like super cheap.
The spear really frustrates me as costing 1 point, which just it makes him the only hero I think in any of my lists that's not a multiple of 5 points when you run it.
This like it comes in the set with the captain, so it was metal, now finecast, and comes with a spear and a crossbow. Yeah. So yeah, I think he's good. Heroic march is always useful. Like I say, he's only got 1 might, so that nerfs him a little bit. Loadout's generally a spear.
You probably give him the spear, because you don't really want him doing fighting, because he's quite important for the army.
Yeah.
And a spear doesn't really hurt. You can trade that for a shield elsewhere, on a troop. But I'd probably be throwing a crossbow on him again for the exact same reason.
Just the might with a ranged weapon.
It's just so good. You never know when you can, just one 50-point model, or 45 in this case, just punks a hero because he's got some might points and a crossbow.
Yeah.
This is the chap as well for Fog of War that you want to defend. He is never getting in a fight unless you've absolutely screwed up Royal.
Yeah. Especially if you've got 60 Corsairs in front of him as well.
Yeah, like I say, it's a pretty kind of self-explanatory profile, and one you're going to take. If you had the choice, Captain or Boson?
That was my next question. So, as a player who's never played with, but played against them a lot, what would you choose, a captain or a bosun first?
Boson is always the third hero in my list. Once Daggers and Delgamar are in there, then it's a Boson.
So for me, you'd alternate, but for me it would be Captain first, just because of the might that you need in that list at any points level. But I mean, they're both so useful that there isn't really a wrong answer there. I don't think. I think if you took a Boson instead of a Captain first, you get different benefits, and you probably don't miss that one might point. But the 5/5 would be helpful, just on a third character.
So I think in most points levels you're probably getting both.
Yeah. The army itself is so cheap that you'd almost always get both.
Yeah. So that is. Oh no, we've got one more hero, I think. Yeah, the last hero. So,
I
Phil?
forgot about this.
So Black Numenorean Marshal, who is a man of Mordor, infantry, and he's a hero of fortitude, move of 6, fight of 5 with a 4-up shoot, strength 4, defense 7, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5, 2 might, 1 will, and 1 fate. His war gear is heavy armor, a sword, and shield, and he has the options of an armored horse, a lance, and 2-handed weapon. He comes with march, and he causes terror.
So, do you see these in a Corsair list?
I've forgotten they were even in there, to be honest.
Yeah, so this profile is listed under the Barad-dûr, but can be included in the Corsairs of Umbar, and it doesn't actually have a model, but it comes from the Morgul Knights kit, plastic kit. I think it's a solid profile, but yeah, not one that people think to include.
I'd be really happy to include him in a Barad-dûr army, in a Mordor army.
But not in a Corsair army.
Never would consider to take him with the Corsairs. He's got a bit of maneuverability with the horse, but he lacks that crucial Corsair keyword.
Yeah. I was going to say, would you think of taking him instead of a captain? Because he's the same fight. He's got a higher courage. He's terror. He's 15 more points. So you could take him on foot.
Am I right in thinking that he's actually got better courage than Delgamar?
That's correct.
He does, yes.
Correct.
Outstanding. So, I mean, there's an argument to take him if you really wanted to. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could, like, what would it be, like 75 points, I imagine, with his horse and lance somewhere in that region?
So he'd be 85 if he's kitted out.
85? My
Yeah.
word.
85 with horse and lance. But you could just take him on foot.
Yeah, but why would you?
Oh, yeah, of course.
For 85 points, I'd say probably not. Not for me. The Courage 5 is nice, but for the way that the Corsair, or the way I build Corsairs, I just couldn't justify 85 points. You're basically getting Delgamar again, and for much less value.
Yeah, I think it'll, obviously there's a Black Numenorean Marshal in the list, so we'll come on to it later, but the Black Numenoreans are on it as well. And I like to say, if you're going for theme, they could lead a few of them for a bit of something different, especially if you're playing higher points, say 1,000 points. But it is an interesting one to throw in and say, do you take him over a normal captain? But Corsairs are so cheap, you want lots of bodies, and come onto the army bonus, and that'll give you a reason why. So it's a very interesting profile to drop in there.
I've played against Corsairs a few times in a new edition, and I've never seen anyone take the Marshal, and that's at various different points levels as well. So anywhere from sort of 450. I think I played a game at 750 or 800 as well, and never seen him. So
I think, like Will said, it's kind of a forgotten member of the list.
yeah.
I think they're cool. The Morgan Knights models are nice.
Oh, they look awesome.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that being the final hero, we will now move on to the warriors. So this is where the Corsairs get juicy. So Will, if you want to kick us off with a...
Yeah, so we have a basic Corsair of Umbar. They are a man Corsair infantry warrior. Fight value 4 with a 4 up shoot value. Strength 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3. So they come with a sword and throwing daggers, and you can give them a bow, shield, or spear, and have no special rules yet. My thoughts, they're just a really solid profile and pretty well costed as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree with you. Yeah.
I was going to say, the defense 3 caught me out when I first used them and was like, oh, that's interesting. But the fight 4 really, really does help. And that's something that can negate that defense 3.
The thing about... Go ahead.
So there's certainly an army where you put shields on the front and back rank. I think sometimes you'll make the concession and you won't put, if you've got Morannons or whatever, you might not necessarily always put shields on the back rank, but Corsairs, everything's going to be defense 4, aren't they? I think you've got to make sure you've got as many shields as possible in there.
I stick spears on my front rank as well, actually, with my Corsair.
Lunatic.
Because I will see my list later, but the way that I build my lists, having spears everywhere means you can always spear support in any direction. They're there to support the other warrior types as well. I tend to find that across a whole army, if I dropped all of the front rank spears, I might get one more body in. And I probably make more use of being able to support in multiple directions than I do of that one extra corpse.
Yeah, there's a reason the likes of Iron Hills Warriors and Warriors of Arnor are so good. Being able to never be flanked is always great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't remember what I was saying. I had a point in my head there. We'll move on. The throwing daggers, that's the point. That, I think, is when you look at this list, the throwing daggers is the point where you go, okay, the damage output on these guys is phenomenal.
Yeah. Considering how many models you see in an army, having 20, 30, 40 of these guys throwing a dagger at you, even if it's just for a turn, that's still a fair few wounds you're going to cause to the enemy. So
yeah, it's not what you want, and it's another cheesy way to play them if you need scenarios to end and things like that, because you can just throw into combat. There's no downside to doing it and just murder whatever you murder. I remember at the GT a couple of years ago, I was playing against Jay Clare, and I had Rohan and he had his Corsairs, and my Rohan eventually managed to charge in, and because he had like 65, 70 models, he just threw into all the combats, because he can lose his front rank and it means nothing, but if he kills half of my horses, it's game over. You lose nothing, and so throwing daggers on almost your whole army is insane.
Yeah.
For me, that's the absolute linchpin to playing a Corsair army, is knowing when to shoot into combat and sacrifice your own guy. Even if you're not trying to break, a lot of the time it's worth it. If you've got one Corsair model who's up against a big hero, shoot him, because he's probably not going to beat the big hero. The big hero is almost definitely going to kill him in the fight. But if you kill him with the shooting, you've probably stopped a heroic combat to get him going where he wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of putting the shields on as much as you can as well, because then if you're in a really sticky situation, you've got something that you really don't like in your flank, you can be like, right, screw it. All of these spear supports are going to throw into that as well. And the front rank will just have to shield this turn. Like, you just get so many options for such a cheap model.
Yeah. I agree. Definitely.
Also, the plastic kit, there are some really characterful sculpts in this kit. I have no idea when they came out in the range, but I think they're some of my favourite plastics for the troops.
I'm going to say mid 2000s, 2005,
But
2006.
they were
maybe?
around. They were just after the Return of the King release, I think. They
Oh,
were sort
okay,
of that era.
good.
I am guessing, but
Because they didn't have many heroes to start with, I don't think.
they might have just had Dalamir, I think, and the captains.
Yeah, I was going to say it's only recently we've got Delgamar. And like I say this is one of the you get 24 in a kit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, loads of character wall roses. I've just painted up 24 of them, and I really enjoyed it. So
The only issue is you get 8 bowmen, which when we go further on, you'll realise why they're not that useful.
yeah, I was going to say I don't think I've ever seen people take those.
They are often conveniently posed that they can convert up very nicely. The bowmen.
Yeah. And on that note, Corsair Reavers. So this is a man Corsair Infantry Warrior model. It's move 6, fight 4, 4+ shoot, strength 3, defense 3, 2 attacks, 1 wound, courage 4. Not that special. He has 2 swords. He has no options, but he has the special rule Mindless Killers, and I'm going to get the book in front of me because this is the long one. So any Corsair Reaver that starts its move at least 6 inches away from a friendly Corsair Boson must make a courage test. The courage test has failed. He will charge the nearest enemy model if there are 2 models an equal distance away from each other the controlling player may choose. If the Reaver fails this courage test, it is not possible to charge an enemy model. It will charge the nearest friendly model. Should, of course, a Reaver charge a friendly model, and the charged model may not move during the move phase and must fight the Reaver. If the Reaver fails this test, there are no models, friend or foe, that it can charge or move 6 inches towards the closest enemy model. The Reaver's controlling player may choose to have the Reaver automatically fail its courage test if they wish. When driven into this bloodthirsty rampage, Corsair Reavers gain a bonus of +1 to wound rolls and do not need to take courage tests for charging terror-causing models. Thank goodness. That's what makes them cool.
Yeah, that's the key point for these guys.
Yeah. And it's been FAQ'd that you can fail the courage test whilst within 6 inches of the bosun. So you don't have to do any funny moves with your bosun.
I absolutely love that FAQ. When this edition first came out, I started doing a lot of really fun manoeuvres with the bosun to get him out of the way once I wanted to start failing those tests. And then having to move him back in again to supply his banner.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to fail it with him around is absolutely beautiful. It's the cherry on top of an absolutely beautiful rule.
I agree.
Yeah. I think Corsairs are probably top of the list in models you'd pay the extra point for a weapon swap on as well.
Yes. I was going to say, in the old edition, you used to see these guys frequently because they were defense 4, fight 5.
No, I think they were still defense 3, but they were fight 5, which is just obscene.
Yeah, absolutely relentless, and a lot of people convert them to axes because you could in that edition. It's worth noting that they don't have a model for this profile. You have to convert them yourself. I know, Phil, you've done some cool ones with skull masks.
And chains around the wrist. I really like the idea that they were just chained up below deck, and then when it was time to kill, just point them at the enemy and hope for the best.
Again, I like with the throwing weapons, it's a model which you can kill your own guys with, if needed. What kind of proportion do you guys take Reavers-wise in your list?
I will try to take a full warband of 12 with the bosun. With the Corsairs, for me, the idea of mixed warbands goes straight out of the window. Your bosun's leading your Reavers because otherwise they're attacking your own back line. So they become a very specific warband, especially if you've got random deployment. You don't want them going on somewhere out of control.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to max out on these. I'm, unlike Will, not a crossbow heavy player. So I will take plenty of spears and a warband of these to just go nuts.
So for me, I'm kind of in the other camp in that there's an awful lot that can go wrong with these guys. And so I'd probably take a smattering to none. Like they are undeniably cool, and it's nice to have a little bit of charging assurance, especially with the Black Numenorean meta at the moment, in that you just don't have to worry about failing charges. But again, I'm all about squeezing as many points as you can into getting as many models as you can, and they just they tip a little bit more into that premium area. And to me, the idea of a warband of Reavers sounds absolutely awesome. But I just have horrendous visions of a top table game where like your bosun gets black darted and then suddenly you lose control of 12 models. I just hate the idea of that.
It's why I carefully avoid top table games.
Just the idea of 12 models just turn around and start punching each other until there's one left. It's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, because I've heard of weird scenarios where someone's charged a Corsair and then a Reaver's charged the Corsair in the back, so it's this weird three-way fight and no one knows what's going on, and quite often a lot of things die.
Your opponent always gets to love rolling a dice for one of your models to kill one of your models. So they're another model that, like the throwing weapons, you really want to have that charge off because you don't get their bloodthirsty rage if they don't charge. So you really want them moving. For me, these have been the really big swing under the new edition as well. When they used to be Fight 5, I actually started my Corsair army after going to a tournament and playing against elves with Mordor every single game.
Oh, God.
And the idea of actually being able to tie a roll-off really sounded appealing to me. So I put together this list that had some Fight 5 troops in it. And it balanced the field against the elves for a long time. But if you came up against dwarves, the low defense and sort of the not huge amount of killing power just meant that dwarves would slice through a Corsair army.
Yeah.
Now they've switched, you've not got the fight value anymore, but you can end up with some really brutal bonuses to your wounding, and you're just opening canned food when you're facing against a dwarf army now.
Yeah, definitely. So we move on to the next Corsair.
Yep, so we're on to the Corsair Armor.
Beautiful.
So we got man, Corsair, infantry, and warrior for the keywords. Move 6, fight 4 with a 4+ shoot. Strength 3, defense 3, 2 attacks. That's a typo.
Oh, yeah, that's a typo.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say they're massively overpowered otherwise. 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3. And the war gear, they have a crossbow, a dagger, and a Havice. Never know how to pronounce that. No other options, but the special rule for the Havice thing is that it's a giant wooden shield that provides the bearer with +3 defense, so long as the bearer is not engaged in combat with another model. The bearer may use the rules for shielding, although they will not gain the +1 defense bonus as they also carry a crossbow. So I'll let Will take over from here then.
Well, they're awesome, aren't they? There's absolutely no denying. They're one of the few crossbows in the game that will outshoot elves, because Urukai remain defense 5, which sucks in the shoot off. With the exception of the legendary Legion, Rangers of Ithilien, which is the worst thing ever. They should realistically outshoot almost any other army, because even against Ironhill's crossbows, they're going to be doing the crossbows and on 5s as well. There's nothing not to like, and yeah, they go to defense 3 in combat, but they can still shield, and really, if you're getting these guys in combat, you're kind of clutching at straws anyway. It's a shame they don't have throwing daggers as well, because that would have been consistent and awesome. But I think these are absolutely awesome, and probably the main draw to the Corsair army for me.
I was going to say, having asked both of you to do this, and then getting both your army lists in, it was very interesting to see how, Phil, you've gone, we'll come on to it a bit later, but you've gone more Reaver heavy, whereas Will has gone more Arbalester heavy. Is there a reason you don't take that many?
Playstyle, really.
Yeah.
I play Corsairs very aggressively. I want to be up at the front, smashing as many things with some frothy pirates who've gone absolutely mad. If I can't fill out my front, like once I've filled out my front, I will start to take a few crossbows. But for me, it's just not what the army, like the appeal of the army is for the real aggression.
Yeah.
They feel a little bit too passive for me.
I think
It's a fair argument, especially when the Arbalesters are the same cost as the Reavers, or near enough if you're doing weapon swaps and stuff.
Yeah.
So you are likely to go one way or the other. So I get where you're coming from.
Again, like once you've got a few of them, if you can post them up somewhere high and just leave them there for the whole game taking pot shots. I've taken out a few important horses from under big heroes with them with just lucky rolls. And that's the niche that they fulfill for me, rather than being sort of the backbone of my Corsair army.
I was going to say, it's worth noting that the Black Numenorean Marshal is the only mounted model you can get, well, bar the Knight of Umbar, in the Corsair list. So getting other heroes on your playing field and taking them off those horses and negating those bonuses is huge. These come in packs of 3 and they're metal. I don't think they will ever change to Finecast. I've got metal ones.
No, it's still metal.
Still metal.
Yeah. And for me, that's kind of the other thing that puts me off of fielding too many of them. I just seen all my paint sloughing off of the metal too many times. When I've got the rest of the army in plastic, it's like, I'll just go Corsair heavy.
Yeah, it is the curse of the metal models, especially when you have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I also think they're one of the coolest looking infantry models you can get, especially when you've got a big line of those shields. They do look cool.
Yeah, they are lovely models.
So we'll move on to the last troop on the list. Mr. Beale, if you want to take this away.
Yes, the Black Numenorean, man, Mordor, infantry warrior. They are fight 4 and a 4-up shoot, strength 3, defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. They have heavy armor, sword and shield. They have the options of Warhorn and Banner, and they cause terror.
So a good unit in its isolation.
You could say that, yeah.
They are currently one, especially on Blue Beat Red, with the Evil. They're one of the go-tos for Evil players, I would say. Where do they fit within a Corsair of Umbar list?
I will occasionally take one. And he is carrying a banner because sometimes that's VPs. And it can be passed on to a Corsair once he's done with it.
Is there a thought behind taking a Warhorn if you're taking Reavers?
Potentially, but the point cost of the Warhorn means that you're probably losing 3 Reavers to take it. If you've got points to spare, if you're playing a really big points match, maybe. I have done one. My banner one does have a magnetized optional Warhorn that just sticks onto his belt. But
Multi-purpose.
Multi-purpose, yeah. They do have that defense 6, which is a lot more than anything else in the army. If you're likely to be facing a lot of shooting, they can be a front rank to get you the rest of your Corsairs across the board. And they can be a terror-causing shield wall, but they lack the Corsair keyword.
Yeah, a couple on the flank could never go amiss, just to stop any sort of cheeky wraparounds with the courage. I think with the Warhorn thing, I'm a big advocate of Warhorns. I think if you're in an evil army and you're not taking one, you better have a plan. But I think with Corsairs, the issue with the Corsairs is the way I play them, you're planning to take as many as you can. So I don't plan on being broken, so courage shouldn't matter that much. And if you imagine that you're going to have a huge amount of models, and then you're going to be broken, and then you're going to get at least an extra turn with the fact that Daggers is a hero of legend. I know this is lots of ifs and buts, but
yeah,
at a point for the Corsair army, if you're hoarding it, the point in which you need a Warhorn is probably too far gone, especially at a high points level. But if I was to take a Black Numenorean, he'd almost definitely be one of them stood with a banner and maybe a Warhorn. And I mean, the front rank Black Numenorean is something that we see a lot of, and it is undeniably good. No one can say that Black Numenoreans, aren't worth it. But again, we're losing that Corsair keyword is pretty important for this list, and I think that's the argument why you wouldn't see more of them.
Yeah, like I say, it's the option to get a banner in for VPs. It's the only option you have. So yeah, you might see one. I've converted up some Army of the Dead to be my Corsair Black Numenoreans, and given one a Delgamar banner where I shaved off the big eagle thing, and they've just got some ships on them. But like I said, that was more of a hobby project rather than looking to build it competitively. So I think that is the end of all the warriors. Yeah, so we'll move on to that army bonus. So the Corsairs are upon us. It is the last stroke of doom. The Corsair models gain the Backstabber special rule, which is +1 to wound when the opposing model is trapped, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where we say the Corsair. So the Corsair is the keyword. So this is where we say, if you don't have the Corsair keyword, you're probably not going to be in the list.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think this is actually one of the hardest army bonuses in the game, because a lot of them you would take or leave, and this is one where you'd be really, really conflicted about whether you kept it or not. Because the likes of Mordor that would take away the army bonus to ally in have got some really, really good options that could help the list out. But Backstabbers is just so good, isn't it? You're going to be really... You'd have to have a really interesting list planned to not want to keep this army bonus.
Stacking that with the Reavers mindless killers for a +2 to wound on a trap model with the 2 attacks on the Reavers, 4 dice coming at you. And
Especially if you pay that point to give them an axe as well. I know that's cheesy, but at strength 4 with +2 to wound, there's not much that's going to stand against that.
No, not at all. Like I say, it makes the heroes have a bit more killing power, especially when they're not mounted.
Especially when they've got Bane of Kings and they're re-rolling all failed to wounds at +1 to wound.
Yeah.
It helps them keep up. It helps them keep up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which is where both of you have been saying you load out with as many models as you can.
And for me, this is the other reason that I don't take so many crossbows. Crossbows I like to have sat at the back, not getting involved in the fight. And if you're not getting involved in the fight, you're not trapping people.
Yeah. Most definitely. Like I said, I think it is a very strong army bonus. It's hard to say which army bonuses are the best and whatnot, because a lot of them are very, very good. So historical alliances, we've just touched on alliances there. The only one they have is the Serpent Horde, which is obviously Harald. Have you guys allied in many Howard models, heroes, just because?
Oh.
So I haven't, but I absolutely would. So we've identified pretty early on that the main drawback to the Corsairs is the lack of mobility.
Yeah.
You get a buttload of models, but none of them are particularly fast. One thing at like 700 points upwards, I'd look at including would be Sunderland on horse, and then 4 or 5 Serpent Riders, because that functionally just fixes the problem. And because you can take so many Corsairs, you won't necessarily miss those points like you would in other armies.
Yeah.
It also gives you another hero of legend to decide who wants to be the general, because Sunderland and Delgamar are both good, but are also slightly fragile. And so allowing one of them to be a beat stick is pretty good. And when you combine the fact that Sunderland's also a 6-inch banner,
that's what I was going to mention.
And we've talked about
well.
you want to be stacking bonuses as much as you can, and he can do it far better than a Boson can. So there's also like a bit of a point exchange there. So you wouldn't necessarily go like 50-50 split or anything like that, but just the odd thing here or there. You might also, if you were really crazy and you liked Hasharin a lot, you might put a Harad Taskmaster in there just to give them half a chance at some extra might points.
Yeah.
But that's really like big brain listing, and I don't think it'd particularly work. But yeah, Sunderland and a few riders is a real sweet addition to Corsair listing.
Yeah, kind of the one list that I've not painted or played with, but toyed with is Sunderland, some Serpent Guard on foot, some Abrakan Guard, like 2 bowmen, and then like 4 or 5 cav split between Serpent Riders and Raiders with spears, and then Delgamar, 6 Arbalesters, 6 Corsairs with shields, 6 Corsairs with spears at 500 points. And
that'd be pretty grim.
It's like 35 models at 500 points with some ranged threats, some cavalry. Like I say, you've got your 2 big heroes. I think at lower points is the only time you'd probably split it like that. Like I say, any higher you'd stick with Corsairs, or you'd stick purely with Harad in the Serpent Horde. So
I mean,
sorry, go on, Will.
On that sort of basis, I know this is like the Corsairs video, but if you were to forget about Corsairs as an army list, being able to drop Delgamar 12 spears and 6 crossbows in a list for not a lot of points is a really hot pick, especially if you're running Amber Alliances anyway, or green in the Serpent Horde, which is great. Like, that's a real hot drop that not many armies can do.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, Ardacon last year, I think the guy who played second game went on to finish 7th. He had a similar list as we discussed. It was Corsairs it was just Sunderland with about 6 or 7 Raiders.
Is that the American dude?
Yeah, Rainier, I think it is.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He's a really competitive player in America.
Yeah, really nice, really competitive. But I did my Iron Hills with Blister, and just having those Raiders come up along the flank where you got then 40-odd Corsairs coming straight down the middle, it makes you sort of think a little bit differently as well.
Actually, it's the versatility of having some cavalry, and Serpent Riders can definitely have some damage output with their poison lances, etc. So
yeah.
So as they're the only historical alliance, I don't think there's much else you'd include from Harad. You'd either
probably not from me.
It's Sunderland or nothing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an argument for the Golden King, but he offers similar bonuses and without the mobility of Sunderland. So Sunderland's the better pick out of the 2.
Yeah, I think we're all agreed on that. So next we are moving on to the army lists. So I will kick off with my 500 points. We let our guests choose between 500, 650 and 800 points. And me or Luke wrote a list for the leftover one. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these because being a non-Corsair player, I can look at it with a completely fresh mind.
so I've taken a little bit of a different approach to the guys because I got their lists first, and I'd just like to get their thoughts on this. So I've got Delgamar, 3 Black Numenoreans, 1 Black Numenorean with a banner, 1 Corsair of Umbar with a shield, 5 Corsairs of Umbar with shield and spear. That might just be spear, actually. Corsair Boson with a shield and spear, 3 Reavers, 9 Arbalesters, Corsair Captain, 3 Black Numenoreans, 2 Corsairs of Umbar with shields, and 5 Corsairs with spears. So this is 35 models, 9 crossbows, a banner, 5 might, direct strike, direct march, and some terror-causing troops. So the guys with shield and spear should only take spear. Thoughts, gents?
So this is like the current meta competitive build with your front line of scary boys. No one can argue that, as I said, that Black Numenoreans aren't good. But especially with only 35 models, you'll really struggle to get the army bonus.
Yeah.
At which point, at 500 points, there might be you might be able to build a similar idea with what you're going for from Mordor for cheaper. But then you wouldn't get the Arbalesters. So it's not to say it doesn't work. There's just not much juicy +1 to wound there is the problem.
I'd be inclined to drop the shield off the Boson and give it to the 5 spearmen that aren't carrying one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice to defend your heroes, but your Boson really shouldn't never get in a fight if you can avoid it.
Yeah, like I said, I think I have 5 points left over, and I normally go with what's at the box. So, like, my Corsairs and Spears don't have shields. That was my thinking. Like I said, I thought it was just something a little bit different. But like we've just spoken about with the alliances, if I was going to go down this route, I'd probably go Harad and take, if I'm going to take some Black Numenoreans, take it with a Harad combo. But yeah, that was kind of my thoughts.
The 500 point Green Alliance that you mentioned is terrifying. I'd be much more worried about playing that than I would this.
Yeah.
The main issue that you lose in this is the fact that it's built in a similar way in that you'd build a Mordor list or similar, but you only get 5 might points because you're paying the Corsair tax.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you could build the same list in Mordor and have like 3 or 4 extra might points, that's when it becomes more of a factor.
Yeah. As I say, me and you have played at Reading, and I had a Black Numenorean run on with Goth, Mog, Zagdish, and Gorbag, if I remember correctly. And that's a similar. Okay, you don't have the throwing weapons, but it's a similar build-ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see where it's going. And like I said, the Black Numenoreans don't get the +1 on the traps. So if you were to alter this, what would you do? Drop some Numenoreans?
I'd kind of switch around what you've got. So I'd have less Numenoreans and put them on, like, have enough to put on a flank of each warband.
Yeah.
And then have your main core be just Corsairs with shield. It just gives you more opportunities to get the backstabbers. But Black Numenoreans are still good. And if, as I said, if you stop that cheeky flanking charge and roll on the edge,
yeah,
like they've done their job, haven't they? That's where they come into their own.
Yeah. At 500 points, I'd be really hesitant to take the banner. You've got the banner effect on the Boson, and it's at least 2 more bodies that you can squeeze in without it. I appreciate that it is VP, so that's the real toss-up with the Corsair army, do I take that banner?
Yeah, it's also because you could have such a long fighting front line. I know me and Luke played last week, and
don't remind me.
and having we played the higher points, but having a Boson and a banner means you can spread that banner roll a lot further.
Yeah, absolutely.
At 500, would you take Delgamar and Delgamar?
I probably would.
I think I'd try and squeeze in Delgamar. He just gives you so many options. I think at 500 points for me, maybe it would be Dalamir, Delgamar, Boson.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You drop a few models, but you still be 30 plus. If you drop the banner as well, that sort of more than makes up for it, sort of thing.
The banner upgrades the captain immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that 25 points difference. So. Awesome. So we will move on to Phil's list.
Cool. So I've got Dalamir leading 14 Corsairs of Umbar who've all got shield and spear. Delgamar has got 12, again with shield and spear. There's a bosun with 10 Corsair Reavers, and they are dirty Reavers with axes. And then a captain who's carrying a shield and is leading 5 arbalesters. It leaves me with 45 models, 5 crossbows, 8 might, strike and march. I've got the shield, the shield and the spears everywhere, and I do have those axes on the Reavers.
So, Will, your
Pretty
thoughts?
tough. I think the only thing that jumps out to me that I'd change there is I'd just put the crossbow on the captain if he's going to be stood with the arbalesters anyway. But we've said, having spears on everything is always a good idea if you can afford it. You've still got a load of models. You don't have much might, but welcome to Umbar. It's an awful lot of Reavers, and that makes me uncomfortable. And it would either work great or fall apart. And who knows? It depends on the scenario. It depends on what army you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it could be the best decision ever.
So, Phil, have you played with this list? Have you played with this list at this points level?
No, this is a 5 model reduction from my GT list this year.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's very, very similar to what I took it to the GT at 700. I won all 3 of my games with the Corsairs.
Nice.
That I had the 2 more Reavers in there and a couple more crossbows. I think I put a shield on the bosun at that point level as well.
Okay.
It really does fulfill that. I've got like pushing 30 throwing weapons coming your way. I've got 5 crossbows that I can take those pot shots. The captain is definitely going to leave the arbalesters behind and go and be 2 points worth of heroic move in the middle. Delgamar does exactly the same thing. He's got 3 might for getting those moves off, to get those throwing weapons, to get those Reavers into the fight where you want them. And Delgamar and the bosun sort of space out across the line so that you've got a banner in one place and a whip in the other.
Yeah, nice. Like you were saying earlier, if you dropped all the spears, you're getting what, 3 extra guys?
Yeah. And for me, that support is key. And once the 10 Reavers are in there, you're either supporting them or trapping around them. So
yeah. Nice. Like I said, I don't think there's much I would change. Have you found the axes worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Strength 4 is an absolute workhorse. Strength 4 plus 2 to wound is terrifying.
Certainly is. The difference in plus 2 to wound or strength 3 and strength 4 across the board is huge. If you're even remotely competitively minded, I think you'd always put an axe on a Reaver. The amplification of what they can do is just so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think there's much. And no one's got any complaints with that one.
No, it's a solid list, that.
So move on to 800 points.
Okay, so we've got Dalamir with 9 Corsairs with shield, 9 Corsairs with shield and spear. Delgamar with 6 Corsairs with shield, 6 with shield and spear. a Crossbow Captain with 6 Arbalesters, a Crossbow Captain with 6 Arbalesters, and a Boson with 6 Arbalesters and 2 Corsairs with Shield. For 55 models, 21 crossbows, 10 might, and then all of the heroics that we can get.
That's just far too many crossbows.
I think it's
that makes me
perfect
feel
amount.
sick.
So I'm guessing you've maxed out your crossbows.
Yes.
Yeah.
As best I could.
Yeah, that's grim. That's really grim. I like it, but it's grim.
It's, yeah, I mean, the opponent's definitely going to be fighting in the shade for this one. The absolute cloud of arrows coming over.
So have you used, like, same question to you, Will. Have you used this list at 800?
No, I did a World Champion special and played it at a tournament at 500 points and then sold it for a new army. But if I had Corsairs, this is what I would take. The idea is, I mean, the crossbows are really good. I wouldn't necessarily sit back and shoot all the time with this army. There's so many scenarios that are objective specific, and what this allows you to do is just go, okay, this is my hill, and then you will shoot until the point where you need to fight, and then it's all hands on deck. And the Arbalesters will be getting stuck in as well, because there is, if the army's strength 4, they're as fragile as everybody else anyway.
Yeah.
And they can always shield. You just want to be trapping as many people as you can. But if you've got a scenario like Lords of Battle or to the death, your opponent almost certainly has to come to you, and what's going to be left by the time they get there, you're almost definitely trapping. By taking some of the smaller war bands, what it allows you to do is put them out on the flanks, and then when the fighting does come, you can either throw them over to get objectives, or they can very quickly run down the sides or around the back of the army, and you're going to be trapping everybody.
Yeah,
In
I think having the smaller warbands as well, meaning that you can have 2 of the warbands stay still and still have 14 shots, and have the other guys moving, and then just alternate as to where you want to go.
You're also, if you're coming into a maelstrom scenario, you've got tons of chance of having great line of sight with your sort of 3 drops of the crossbow.
Yeah. And it gives you the micro drops as well for if you've got like 1 warband of crossbows and your opponent's got more warbands than you, you're going to reach a point where you have to put them down and they can counter it. Whereas you've got warbands to spare here, and you're almost certainly going to be able to get at least some of them in the right position. And it gives you the move and shoot cover as well. So if you have 2 warbands next to each other, 6 will move, 6 will stand and shoot, and then they swap for the next turn. So you've got constant fire. Because that's the only drawback of the crossbows is obviously you can't move and shoot, and that you can often give an opponent a free move, whereas this always keeps them guessing.
Yeah. Do you build these kind of micro warbands in other lists that you run?
No, but if I was to take Isengard, I probably would.
Okay.
Iron Hills, it doesn't really matter as much because you're almost always castling, so you don't really need to do the rolling cover, especially if you've got a ballista as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly something that you consider. I am looking at the moment at an Isengard list, which would work in a similar way, which is just spamming crossbows, and so you take 2 orcs to every crossbow, and you can get it for like 21 points at minimum. Like it's crazy low. And again, at 800 points, you're getting an insane amount of crossbows. But it'd be significantly worse than this list because all the Corsairs are generally good anyway.
Yeah. So, Luke, is the list giving you a flavour of what you would do with Corsairs?
To be fair, they're all quite different. So going from yours was the 500, obviously you got the Black Numenorean aspect.
Yeah.
Phil's is purely, not purely, but it's more combat focused, and you got Will, which is more shooty focused. So I think it just shows the versatility of what you can do with quite a relatively small army composition, really.
Yeah.
Which is quite unusual, actually.
I was going to say, I tried to make mine a little different just because I'd seen these two lists already. And like so, the flavours are all different.
I find it really interesting that the 150-point climb between each list has led to exactly 10 more models in each list as well.
Oh god, yeah, I didn't even realise that.
Just to quickly point out for anyone that's watching, I've got my maths slightly wrong. I can only take 17 Arbalesters, not 18.
Oh.
So I'll throw a solitary Reaver in there for fun. So it's 20 Crossbows, not 21. So I do apologise.
No, that makes it better.
Yeah, it's a rubbish list now. I wouldn't take it.
Making more Reavers, that's what I would do.
So we'll move on to your final thoughts, gents. On the Corsairs as a whole, have you enjoyed playing with them?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, like my favourite army on the tabletop is the Corsairs. You've got enough models to not worry about the defence. You've got enough aggression that you can just throw them into a fight and have a good time. Like I said before, if you're not trying to get to the top tables, when the Reaver wall collapses and you slaughter yourself, it's just hilariously good fun.
They seem a little bit like the fantasy orcs of the Lord of the Rings world, in that they can just be completely random and that's okay.
In terms of,
okay.
I was going to say, in terms of aesthetics, which is the main thing that draws me to them, I think we touched on it before. Some of the models have so much character and you can put so much work into them when you paint them that I don't think I've ever seen a Corsair army that looks the same on different people. People have their own takes on what the cloth should be and how much detail they need to put in. And each time they look different, but they still look amazing.
As I say, just off the top of my head, I know I've gone kind of GW scheme on a lot of mine.
Yeah.
I know I've seen James Collard of Brushstroke do fantasy, like weird and wonderful patterns on his. I know Phil, yours are relatively brightly coloured.
Absolutely, as vivid as I could get. Yeah.
Yeah. On lovely bases, and I know Will, you went with a more kind of dark and dingy blues and bones and blacks.
Yeah, very very dark blues and purples on like scenic masonry bases.
Yeah,
like they were plundering away.
I was going to say mine are all on wavy wooden plank bases. So there you are. You immediately you got three different styles. I know I've seen who is it? Is it Callum Royal who's converting?
Yes, I wanted to bring that up next.
To have a Pirates of the Caribbean theme.
He's fully gone with the pirate theme. It's amazing.
He's like, but it's like real Pirates of the Caribbean, Jack Sparrow, Davy Jones, all of that, and they look incredible. They look really, really cool. I don't think I've seen them in person yet, but they're awesome.
Yeah, I played against him. I think it was the Bicester event last year.
Yeah.
And it was 750 points, and he had 50 models, all Pirates of the Caribbean themed. It was just amazing to see.
So from a competitive side, Will, your thoughts on the Corsairs? I know they did you relatively well in that tournament.
Yeah, I was robbed, I say. I got very unfortunate in that tournament in that I played Matt Light twice and he had the Rangers twice, the horrible Legendary Legion. And both scenarios we played were in your own. Basically, he could deploy as far back as he wanted. So, as I said earlier, in any scenario where the Arbalesters can shoot, you win unless you're shooting against like 37 Rangers or whatever he had in the list. I still think I came like top 10, and War in Reading is a pretty big event. So they certainly served me well. The other game they played in, they absolutely destroyed some elves, and I'm fairly confident that if I hadn't have played the Ranger Legion, I could have won that event. And they certainly felt strong when there were points where there was something I could do about the games I was playing. I think they can be a very competitive army. I think the issue is they lack might points, and might points win games. It's not to say there isn't ways around that, and you can put 60 guys on the table, and they'll do you a job. If I was to play them at a competitive event again, especially at a high points level, I'd almost definitely be finding a way to get some cav in there. So it'd probably be Sunderland and some Serpent Riders, just to give you that. You lose some models, but you gain so much flexibility within scenarios, which I think is really, really important. But yeah, 100% rate them. I think they're a solid tier 2 army. A good player could do very well with them.
I was going to say, we've seen them win one event from memory.
I think Jay won the GT with them and something else.
It was them and Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Because there was a community article on, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And let's say that's the only time I've seen them played to that kind of standard, apart from yourself. And I've seen the odd person dotted around, but I think it's one of those armies that not many people have even some of the plastics, because they're not in. You don't see them in job lots or anything like that. And for quite a long time, the captains, Bosons, the Arbalests were out. But
yeah, I think they're a little bit of a forgotten army for exactly that reason. When you can't buy any of the things that allow the army to function, they're basically not worth taking. And I think it's taken a little while for people to realise that you can still buy the whole army now, it is all available again.
Yeah.
And they're definitely a top army now. I think they've got better for being split from Harad. And the only thing they've really lost is the fact that Reavers aren't broken anymore. And no one should really complain about armies becoming balanced.
No, not at all.
Absolutely.
That's a good point, saying I think the split between Harad and Umbar, I didn't see many people take a combination of the two in the previous edition anyway.
No, almost definitely not. The only thing that really came out of Reavers was out of Corsairs was the Reavers.
Yeah.
You'd see the odd Delgamar around, but he was rubbish in the last edition because he only had one might point. For 90 points is pretty grim.
Yes.
It's interesting now. I reckon if everything was available, because I don't know what the current range is looking like. I think Reavers.
Everything is there for Corsairs.
Awesome. I think Corsairs would probably be more popular now than Harad, if you were looking at a competitive build.
Yeah.
Which just shows how the tables have turned.
Yeah, that's an interesting chat actually, because we've seen a lot of Harad armies around, and not that many Corsairs. Definitely one I want to run at an event at some point in the however distant future.
Yeah, hopefully not too much longer.
No, fingers crossed. So unless anyone else has got any more final points.
No, nothing from me.
I'm going to take that as a no. I want to say thank you guys for coming on and joining us for this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks,
pleasure.
It's been really good fun. So if you've enjoyed this talk through of the Corsairs of Umbar, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you soon.